And the final poll thought is, what's the best way to decide who gets into the Hall of Fame? Looking at stats, comparisons to similar players and other research, or just say his name out loud and quickly decide if that sounds like he's a Hall of Famer.
That's always been the litmus test for me when you say Luke Kuechly, Hall of Famer. Now, there's a difference, we know, if you say their name and then you might go, how many Pro Bowls did he win Defensive Player of the Year? Like, you might do a little research in your head, but that's if you're a Hall of Famer. You know, sometimes that'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer where you just say their name, you go, oh, yeah. But then you might go, maybe he is a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he is a Hall of Famer. And I think, like Earl Thomas, I would say he's not a Hall of Famer. I think he needed a couple more years. Aqib Talib, a really good player. And thankfully, I don't vote on this. Adam Vinatieri is up. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Eli Manning, first ballot Hall of Famer? Probably, but he shouldn't be. Because if you go back, if David Tyree doesn't make the helmet catch, and Eli has one Super Bowl, one win, and one loss, then he's not going into the Hall of Fame. I mean, I think it's that close. Because they were, 9-7 and 10-7. During a season where they, I think, went 9-7, fans wanted Tom Coughlin fired, and they wanted Eli benched. And then they happened to get on a magical run, and they win the Super Bowl. It just felt like throughout his career, the fans wanted somebody else at quarterback. Like, it's hard to say that about a Hall of Famer and a first ballot Hall of Famer. The name does help, and he did beat the Patriots twice. But he was a 500 quarterback during the regular season. And I think that will be probably the tricky part with people, but I get the feeling that Eli's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Is Marshawn Lynch a Hall of Famer? I would say no. I mean, interesting, good team, hard runner, but I mean, no. So I would say Luke Kuechly is probably a first ballot Hall of Famer. Is Terrell Suggs first ballot Hall of Famer? Kind of overshadowed by other players on that Ravens team, but great player. Great player. Yeah, Paulie.
I've got all the resumes, so you throw out a name, I'll throw you some notes. Terrell Suggs, 7-time Pro Bowler, 1 All-Pro, 2-time Super Bowl champion. He won Defensive Player of the Year. He won Rookie of the Year defensively.
But first ballot Hall of Famer? See, that's what I'm trying. I think he's a Hall of Famer.
I think the playing field he's up against, someone's got to go in. It feels like there's a bunch of Hall of Very Goods.
Well, they, I think, have to take, 6?
Oh, yeah?
Is there a minimum there for a Hall of Fame? I think. But Aqib Talib? Hall of Famer?
5-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro, 1-time Super Bowl champion.
Yeah.
4 teams.
Well, he's not first ballot. Luke Kuechly feels like a first ballot Hall of Famer.
For Luke Kuechly, here's the resume. 7 Pro Bowls.
Yeah.
5-time All-Pro.
Yeah, see, that's when you get everybody's attention.
Right. If you look up All-Pro and you get to 5, you're not going to find many guys who aren't in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Defensive Player of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year. He played only 8 seasons, but they were a great 8.
Yeah, and then concussions, drove him out of the game as well. Vernon Davis, tight end? I don't think so, because you look at his numbers compared to the other players. He was a Pro Bowl player twice. He's not going in the Hall of Fame. How about one of my favorite players of all time, Darren Sproles? He's not going in the Hall of Fame, but I want him on my team.
Hey.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I want Darren Sproles. I remember when he was at K-State, and I remember coming in on a Monday after watching him. I said, I think they were playing in the Big 12 title game. And I was like, that dude is awesome. But he's not going to go into the Hall of Fame. Joe Staley. Does he a tackle? Does he go in the Hall of Fame?
6 Pro Bowls.
Played on good teams. Yeah, once again, I'm glad that I don't vote, because it is I mean, you just stay in that room and you have people, speaking on somebody's behalf. And then all of a sudden, they enlighten you on, hey, I covered this guy. Or this guy played in a different era and most of you weren't watching the NFL then. Like, that's what's fun about it, where you get to learn maybe just how great somebody was compared to their counterparts there. Antoine Bethea, I don't know enough about him.
3 Pro Bowls.
Yeah, that's not going to get you in. Anybody else? Demarius Thomas? No, he's not going to be a Hall of Famer.
Going back to Earl Thomas, he has 7 Pro Bowls, 3-time first-team All-Pro, Super Bowl champion. You get a couple of bonus points if your career ends early due to injury. It's almost like with football. Who's the offensive tackle of the Jaguars?
Tony Baselli.
Tony Baselli got, it's like what could have been.
Yeah. Yes, Marv.
You know what? With Earl Thomas, I think the interception from Malcolm Butler hurt him as much as it hurts Russell Wilson, because he would have been one of the guys on the Legion of Boom defense to help the Seahawks to 2 Super Bowls. So it would have been one of those type of, who's the safety? Earl Thomas. They won a couple of Super Bowls for the Seahawks, and he would have been in.
But it feels like, I don't know, is it fair to compare him to other free safeties? And if you compare him to Ed Reed.
Don't do that.
Right.
Don't do that.
I mean, Ed Reed was unbelievable. Not only, a great player, but if he had an interception, chances are he was going to try to take it back for a touchdown. Yes, Mark.
He was so good. Bill Belichick gets excited talking about Ed Reed. He talks about Ed Reed the way he talks about Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah. Yeah. Golly, you look at these Super Bowls and what they mean for certain players. If you don't have that incredible helmet catch, Eli's not in the Hall of Fame. If Phillip Rivers had a Super Bowl, if Romo had a Super Bowl, if Phil Simms got a second Super Bowl, Russell Wilson has better stats, regular season, overwhelmingly better than Eli, but he lost a Super Bowl. He did win one, but he lost one. And he might be playing his way out of being a Hall of Famer. It's just crystallized in my mind. I'm standing underneath the goalpost, and I'm thinking, Seattle is going to win the Super Bowl. And I'm staring at Marshawn Lynch because I know he's getting the ball. He's going to run right at me, and I'm going to be up on the podium, and he'll be up there getting a Super Bowl trophy. And all of a sudden it was, oh, no. And then I went, oh, bleep. And I go, oh, my God, they almost intercepted that. And then all of a sudden, Malcolm Butler comes up with the ball, and I go, there's no way that he intercepted that ball. And then when you saw it, you go, he just won the Super Bowl. And what that meant, I mean, Pete Carroll would have another Super Bowl. Now, is he a Hall of Famer? Does he not get into the Hall of Fame because he lost a Super Bowl? Just those, the fallout from these Super Bowls is incredible. I mean, Brady, with Vinatieri kicking a last-second field goal, Malcolm Butler with the you need to have help. Yeah, Paulie.
Vinatieri is the best example of them all. He's going to go to the Hall of Fame as a kicker.
Yeah.
That's the hardest route. He's got 3 Pro Bowls, 3 All-Pros, 4-time Super Bowl champion. He's a famous kicker. It's hard to be famous.
Yes, Eaton.
You could even expand what you were just saying about how important Super Bowls are here to how much just the fact of having playoffs has impacted all of these Hall of Fame chances and careers. I mean, if you didn't
expanded playoffs.
If you didn't have expanded playoffs and say you just had AFC play NFC, like a traditional Super Bowl probably would have been, a lot of these things that you're talking about look totally different. The Chargers probably have one. Lamar Jackson probably already has one. There's probably a whole bunch of teams that and players that are trying to get into the Hall of Fame whose careers would be completely different if the expanded playoffs didn't exist.
Well, you can even look back at UCLA basketball. If there were 32 teams in the field, and they usually had a home court advantage through most of the tournament there. Now, they were a great team, but you didn't have to go through a lot of teams to get to the championship game back then. Or if you go back to the Yankees, when they're facing the Red Sox didn't get past the Yankees. Therefore, Ted Williams wasn't playing in the postseason. The Red Sox weren't winning. Yankees did. And it's a little bit easier to get to the World Series. You don't have as many playoff games. But we do credit the playoffs, or somebody gets to the playoffs now, could be as a wild card. And we're like, yeah, it's okay. I mean, the Giants wouldn't have won a Super Bowl in, decades before because there wouldn't have been the wild card in there. Now, once they got in there, they ended up winning. But it is really tricky when you're trying to navigate careers and say, Hall of Famer, not a Hall of Famer.